Good evening, friends. Welcome yet again on our channel. You are invincible. It's a lovely evening, and I hope you all are doing fantastic. Well, we are here again with an extremely exciting interview with a person who has been an actor and then started his conquest on the realm of spirituality. I'd like to share a bit more about him. Before beginning his work in holistic health and spirituality, he had a very successful career as an award winning actor, appearing on Broadway and television. He is none other than Jonathan Hammond. Jonathan now devotes his life to being deeply committed to empowering and healing people by bringing indigenous earth wisdom to the modern world as a master teacher and faculty member for Shamanic Reiki worldwide. A traditional Usui Reiki master, Hammond has had years of training in interspirituality and spiritual counseling at the One Spirit Learning Alliance in New York City and was ordained as an interfaith minister in 2008. He has completed core curriculum through the Foundation for Shamanic Studies and holds certifications in Cherokee bodywork, Huna, and Ho'oponopono. Driven by his background and interest in energy healing, Jonathan has apprenticed with shamanics in Brazil, Mexico, Bali, and Hawaii. He also runs a yoga and spirituality retreat around the world and is the founder of a private spiritual counseling and shamanic practice in New York City known as Mind Body Spirit NYC. Moreover, he teaches classes in shamanism, energy healing, spirituality, and Huna at the world renowned Omega Institute for Holistic Studies in Rhinebeck, New York, as well as at other equally prestigious venues throughout the world. Furthermore, Jonathan is an ordained alakai, which means leader or guide, through Aloha International and has been initiated through the Minuan Fellowship in Vika. Without further ado, I would like to call on our dignitary tonight, Jonathan Hammond.
Aloha, it's really great to be here. Thank you.
Namaste from India, Jonathan.
Namaste.
So good to see you.
You too.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Everything's fine. The weather's turning a little bit in New York City, but things are well. Spirits are up, and things are going well. Yeah.
Wow, wow. I was actually going through your new book, The Shaman's Mind, where I was able to read a bit about, but I want to know more about it. I read the Halakala experience which you had, which actually made you start this journey. How was that experience?
Yeah, I had Hawaii. I've had a series of very formative experiences on the islands. One in particular, where I was in a whole other life, which I know you can understand as an actor, and
Yes.
I was feeling like I wasn't able to spend myself the way that I wanted to. I didn't have the reach that I wanted to have as an actor, even despite relative success. I just felt
Right.
a need to be a bigger part of. Serving its consciousness, yes, serving the world. And so, yes, on the Haleakala volcano, I had a very intense experience with a visitation with God, with the divine, whatever you want to call it, and it was in that moment that I was basically shown I had to change my life, and that I had to make a very counterintuitive decision, which was, to the surprise of my family and friends, that I was going to leave acting and
Right.
pursue this other work. And it did happen on the volcano in Maui. Yeah.
Wow. And something which you were so passionate about, acting.
Yeah.
And
Well, when you think about acting, you think you learn the lines, you learn the blocking, and then you wait for inspiration to come through, right? And so
right.
in that way, it's not that much different than the work that I do now. I mean, I have my wisdom, and I have whatever I've learned, and then I'm hoping that inspiration comes through. It's a different kind of channeling, but it's really the same muscles in so many ways.
Right. It's like connecting the mind, body, and spirit.
That's right. Absolutely.
Which we do as actors just before going on stage or in front of the camera. We actually sync our own self in order to give the best possible through that spirit.
That's right. That's right. And in shamanism, in particular, in and energy healing, and even in the conscious pursuance of a spiritual life, the more that we are imagining our reality, just like we do as actors, the more that we're using the powers of the imagination to enter into the realms of spirit. The doorway is really through the imagination. So in shamanism, we're going back to something that we did very naturally as children, in some ways.
Right, right. So I'm quite fascinated. I mean, you did share about how you came across this entire journey from being an actor. But if you delve a little deeper, the question that I want to ask is, you were a successful actor on Broadway, and then you shifted to a shamanic practitioner, and then a spiritual counselor. So was the experience which you had on that mountain directed you towards this, or there was something else as well, which was like, a higher self speaking to you that, okay, now is the time? How did that happen?
Well, I'd always had a spiritual life, always, even in my previous profession as an actor. And what I thought it was for was just to help me cope with the difficulties of being in show business. That's originally why I chose it. But it kept taking up more space in my life, and it kept being the thing that I kept coming back to, and a thing that where I felt more whole and complete, and as an actor, I wasn't a fame-driven actor. It was about telling stories. It was about affecting people. Like if I was doing that felt like I was in my artistry. And yet I didn't feel that. I couldn't feel that to the extent that I wanted to. And I also just got a sense as I continued on the spiritual path and just felt so much better about myself and started having just such a better life and such better relationships, that it felt like it was more important for me to share what I was going through spiritually than it was to continue telling stories. It was like all of a sudden my story became the one that I wanted to share more, because it was the one that was that turned out was most helpful for people.
Right. I mean, it added more value and meaning to your own life, which you wanted to share it out in the world.
Yeah, we all, and particularly at this time on the planet, we are all, so many of us are being called. So many of us have incarnated at this time on the planet to be a part of this solution, to be a part of this ascension in consciousness and this change that's going on the planet, the earth, the society. And so many of us are at this time, particularly during this quarantine, are really waking up to something that we came in with. So when you talk about higher self, I think of that as the material that we come in with, and the material and that is guiding us if we listen to it. And ultimately, anything that we when we tune into our own inspiration, it's always eventually to use our existence to serve the world. And I think you're doing that, and your listeners, in whatever way they individually do that, we're all that's really all of our calling.
True. I mean, so beautifully, you also mentioned in your book, The Shaman's Mind, that when we ourselves have abundance, when we feel complete in our own self, that's when we want to give it out. That's one of the things which you mentioned. I'm just paraphrasing, but you mentioned something on those lines.
It's really important. I think sometimes when people live a spiritual life or think that they want to, that implies a lack or a martyrdom even. And really, it's in our own abundance that the altruistic impulse is most appropriately followed, because then we really have it to give, and we have it to give from our fullness. So it's so important for everyone to really want what they want and to create the life that it is that you want. And when you get it, the inevitable response is actually to give yourself to the world and to teach the world, to show the world how it was that you came about whatever it is that you've received. So it really is, the shamans call that, or the indigenous people call that, the right relationship with life, right relationship with the earth, where we give to the earth and we receive from the earth, and we give to the earth and receive from the earth. But the receiving is very important.
Right. To be open to that receiving, to be understanding towards that receiving, the interconnectedness of the consciousness, if we may call it.
Absolutely. It's so important, and we're all we'll get into the principles of Huna, which is the indigenous philosophy from Polynesia that my book is based on. But the second principle of Huna talks about a limitless universe. And what that means is that separation from other people, separation from the planet, separation from our dreams and aspirations, separation from what it is that we want. That separation is merely an illusion. We are connected to everything. There's only one great happening, of which we are each an individual aperture through which that one thing experiences itself. So we're not separated from that great organism, from that one organism. So to heal whatever we heal in ourselves, we have a direct effect on healing the planet. That's the way it works. And so it's such an important thing to become aware of, because every action that we take personally affects the collective, according to this philosophy, which says that there's only one thing happening.
That's so beautiful. I mean, that's the reality, if you see the core reality.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. The next thing that I would like to ask you is, which you just said, what is Huna wisdom and how can one share this wisdom?
So Huna wisdom is they're spiritual ideas, working with energy, working with nature, working with mostly the power of the mind. And so my book is called The Shaman's Mind, because what I found was in working with all the shamans that I worked with, that over the years, that they all think, despite different local traditions, despite different histories, they all tend to think the same, and they all tend to think to have a certain way of framing the world and framing themselves in relationship to the world that helps them enter into the magical realms of the shaman. And so the Huna philosophy is a bunch of things, but it's mainly 7 ideas that we can all integrate into our lives, which, if we start to live by them, enter us into that way of thinking and enter us into our own empowerment, and using our minds, our intentions, our actions as tools through which we create our life. And so it's a wonderful philosophy that is really about teaching you how to work with your mind to create the life that you want.
Right. I mean, if I may say, the 7 which you just mentioned, I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong in the pronunciation. It's Ike, the world is what you think it is.
Yeah.
Then it's Kala, there are no limits. Makia, energy flows where attention goes. Manawa, now is the moment of power. Mana, all power comes from within. Aloha, to love is to be happy with. And Ono, effectiveness is the measure of truth. These are the 7 principles, correct?
Yeah, so let's to break them down. So the first one, Ike, and the pronunciation was great. Ike means the world is what you think it is. So what that means is not just that your experience of the world will be based on how you think about it, but that the world itself will shift and change based on how you think about it. So that means so when we say the world is what you think it is, that means that we create the world with our thoughts. And if you think of reality as just a blank canvas, and onto that reality, we each project whatever our inner experience is. And that reality shifts and changes ever so slightly based on what we project on it. So we are all in a co-creative process with creating reality based on what we think about. So that's that first principle. It's pretty deep when you think about it that way.
Yes. It's like a canvas and you paint your own life on it.
That's right. And then the second principle, Kala, there are no limits, indicates to us that the more that we in our own minds have a rapport with limitlessness, with the infinite. The infinity of our potential, the more we are creating onto that canvas something that's really potent and beautiful. That's the second principle. The second principle, anything is possible if you can figure out how to do it. That's what that principle is saying.
Right.
And then the third principle, Makia, energy flows where attention goes. So what this means is that where we place our focus and attention elicit the creative energies of the universe. So we are in a
Right.
symbiotic relationship with the energies of nature, with the creative energies of the universe, based on what we focus our attention on. So
Right.
so this principle is saying the more that we can discipline our minds to focus on what it is that we want and to not focus on what it is that we don't want, the more we invite in those creative energies to create for us those things that we want.
True.
So
True.
it's really amazing that that this philosophy says it's not just that based on what we think, we'll invite in energies that will create what we think. So it's really amazing.
It's beautiful.
The next principle is Manawa. Now is the moment of power. And we know from mindfulness and meditation how important the present moment is. But in this philosophy, what this is really getting at is that now is the only place where we can access power, because now is the only place where we can do anything. So you can't get
the power of now.
The power of now, because you can't get wet by yesterday's rain. You can't get burnt by tomorrow's sun. The only place where you can do anything is right now. And so what that also means is that, so many of us are carrying around our memories, carrying around our experiences. But what this principle says is in any moment, you can just simply start over. You can start over and start fresh in any given moment. And so who you were yesterday is only who you think you are right now.
True.
So it's a really beautiful idea. The next principle, aloha, which is just, you've all heard that if you know anything about Hawaii.
Yes.
That just means that love's perspective is always present. That we just want love to always be an aspect that we're considering, love and happiness. And with whatever we do, however we are projecting our reality onto that, our reality onto that big canvas, that we just include love's perspective, that just always be there. And so that helps us know what to focus on.
So important, the symbiotic relationship which you mentioned earlier, the love and happiness.
Yes, it is so important. And I think that love, I think we're all a little cynical. And I think love and happiness get a bad rap, or they feel in some way impossible or uninteresting, or that we're all just too beaten down to come from that perspective. But if you go to Hawaii, you know that to just be there is to open your imagination to such beauty, and so we all can create our own inner Hawaii, so to speak.
Right.
And that really comes about including love and happiness as the precursors for what it is that we do.
Very true. Absolutely.
Then the next principle, mana, means all power comes from within. So this is a big one, because this is saying that nothing has authority over you unless the power within you granted that thing to have authority over you.
Right. That's deep.
Yeah. So that really means that we all, and we're all trying to assimilate. We're all trying to fit in. We're all trying to be like everyone else and look like everyone else. And to live a spiritual life is to live singularly. That your life and your existence comes through you, not through how you fit in with the collective. And so that's a really big recalibration to make. We're all obsessed with Instagram and obsessed with how it all looks and all of that. And this principle is really saying, follow your own inner directives, your own inner truth, and create from there rather than try to fit in. And the last principle is maybe my favorite, which Pono, and its translation is effectiveness is the measure of truth. So that means in this philosophy, if it works, it's true. And if it doesn't work, it's not true.
Wow, as simple as that.
And so that really indicates that truth is a subjective experience. We're all swimming around in all kinds of different realities that we may not agree with, and we may not be plugged into. And what this philosophy is getting at is that the reality that you can create, as long as it's effective for you. And what is effective? Love and happiness is there. You're in the present moment. You're focusing and knowing that what you think creates your world. Right. And if you're doing that and you're being successful at it, that's an indication that the truths that you're following are the ones that are the only ones that matter, because effectiveness is the measure of truth.
Exactly. So it's being simply in sync with your own self, because when you're in sync with your own self, you will be in sync with the truth, and hence the truth will prevail, and you will there'll be only one truth, which makes so much sense.
I would
Because
say with all the people that I see in my private practice, if there was one thing that they all suffer from, is that they're not fully inside their bodies, they're not fully feeling their feelings. And if we're inside our bodies and we're feeling our feelings, we are wired towards truth. We are wired to feel our soul's journey. And it's as simple as the feeling of when I go in that direction, it makes me feel good. When I go in that direction, it makes me feel agitated and tired. And if
or
I
if things
just
are
follow that,
anxious.
that's
Yeah.
right. And if I
Yes.
just follow that, and the problem with following that is you have to take should out of the equation.
Mm,
Yeah,
true.
you have to take
True.
the idea of being polite for others, not being an inconvenience for others. All of that gets in the way of you following your own inner directives first and foremost. And really, if you get in your body and you feel your feelings, the people who are supposed to be in your life, they'll adapt. They'll adapt to you.
True,
You
true.
know.
Because as earlier when you mentioned about when you change yourself from inside, automatically the environment will also start to reflect the same thing. It's as simple as that. It's all about the core feelings that we have and how we are able to connect. Like I also love the fact, which I know we'll come to later, but about the three factors about the unconscious, conscious, and the superconscious, which I'm sure we'll get into it. So yeah, the next question I would like to ask you is, how would you relate consciousness with Hyuna?
Well, it's all about consciousness. It's all about
Okay.
it's all about that we have so much power. We have so much,
Mm,
and we consider in Huna we consider choice to be a magical power,
wow.
because where we're putting our focus and our attention, what we're focusing on, what we're paying attention to, uh, um, is creating the world, is creating reality for everyone else. So
Mm,
in working with my Hawaiian teacher, who's now, I think he's 83 or 84, when I watch
wow.
him teach, he's the most awake man I've ever seen in my entire life. There's just a sense that no blip on the screen is missed. He's just so aware of what's happening, and he's so aware of what he's focusing on and where he's putting his attention. And there's a sense, we're all
Mm,
so on autopilot, we're all so habituated. And this
right.
is a philosophy that says, get in the now and pay attention to what you're paying attention to.
Mm, mm,
Because if you pay attention to what you're paying attention to, you have directive capabilities over all of life. And then
right.
the spirit follows our lead. And that's a very specific way of thinking of things from a shamanic point of view. That our inner direction comes from us, and the spiritual intelligences follow and respond to what it is that we're open to, what it is that we want. So if you
Right.
think, if you're this is just an example. If you think of
Mm,
a woman who's 35 years old who thinks, oh, I'm 35 years old, it's too late for me, I'll never get married. That's what the spiritual intelligences have to work with. And as much as the
right.
spiritual intelligences would love to stick that guy next to her on
Right.
the subway, because that's the reality that she's creating, that's what they have
Right.
to work with. That's why that limitless piece is so important, because the more that we're open to all possibilities, the more spirit has to work with to bring us what it is that we want.
Right. I mean, it's all about being open, and it's all about being limitless in your own mind, body, and spirit.
Hmm.
I mean, that's so crucial.
Hmm.
That's beautiful. When I can sense a similarity between Huna wisdom and also quantum science, or quantum physics as it is called. Do you think there would be a correlation of sorts? Because even quantum science or quantum physics mentions about rewiring the brain
Sure.
and creating and giving more energy where your focus would go, and hence you keep creating. So would there be a correlation kind of?
Oh, and not kind of. There's a correlation. There all roads lead to Rome. There's
Right,
nothing new
right.
under the sun. We're all coming. We're all these spiritual technologies in any culture. If they're truly legitimate, they're all coming back to essentially the same thing. And yes, the quantum sciences have just identified what the shamans have always known, which is that there is no separation, and that's explained in string theory of quantum mechanics, which says that
Right.
there are subatomic connections with everything.
Connections.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the Hawaiians call that the Aka field, which means that there is a field of potential that lights up based on what we think, and so it speaks of the same thing, and that reality is affected by thought, that the environment not only affects the person who lives in the environment, but that the environment itself is affected by the person who lives there. So there's a symbiotic relationship with everything, and that's all things that have been identified in the quantum sciences. But this is just an indigenous philosophy that has always known that. That was the part that was so fascinating when I began studying this wisdom. It was I thought I was clever. I thought I knew things, and then I thought, wait a minute, these indigenous people have been onto the things, the ideas of Freud and Jung and the quantum sciences and healers and energy centers in the body. They've been doing that long before, hundreds of thousands of years before it's been identified the way it has in our common in our common vernacular. It's amazing stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's why while I was going through your book, I was able to, I was reading and I was contemplating this. There seems to be a congruence between quantum mechanics, quantum physics with the Huna wisdom. So thank you for sharing this, that yes, it has been that way.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. That brings us to the next question. How can one manifest with Huna? Is there a specific technique to follow while practicing Huna?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I mean, I would say, as we've talked about, discipline your thinking. Really discipline your thinking. Get very clear about what you're paying attention to. And there are lots of practices in the book that are around manifesting.
Right.
But if you think about, let's go with the word magic. So what I mean by magic is conscious manifestation, using thought, emotion, visualization, and intention to create something, to make something happen. That's really what magic is, according to the Hermetic traditions, and so magic is most easily practiced with a few different what's what I'm looking for, but a list of things to do. Think about what it is that you want. Get very clear about it. Visualize it. Feel the feelings. Manifest the feelings of what it would be like to have that thing. Do take whatever actions you have to take in the world to get that thing. And this is the most important part: remove the doubt.
So important.
Because the doubt will come up, the doubt will be there. And what we do is we know that it's there. We say, thank you, doubt, for your perspective, but this is what I want, and I'm focusing on this anyway. So that's really it more than anything else, is really look at the parts of you that say, I can't have that. I'm not smart enough to have that. I'm not loved enough to have that. Whatever those things are, those are the things that get us in the way, that get in the way of what it is that we want to create. In Huna, my teacher, Serge, says, mixed thinking gets mixed results.
Very true.
And so the more that we remove that which muddies up what it is that we're focusing on, what it is that we want to create, the more that we remove that, the more we bring that into being with ease.
You make it sound so simple. It's like you give just an example. You give milk to a child, and the child asks, "What is this?" You just tell the child very simply, "This is having all the nutrients that you want for your growth." The child just gulps it up, and he becomes stronger. So similarly, if we humans sync ourselves with our own self, and we focus on channelizing, and we focus on the emotions, and we say the gratitude again, which you said, thank you to the doubt which comes, and we let it go, because once it gets that particular energy in terms of thank you, then again we get so much of clarity, and we keep going on the path that is so important towards that manifestation. It's so simple, but
it is. It's
complicated.
Just, well, sociologically, we're not supposed to have the power. sociologically, we're all born into that. We're all born into power structures that we're supposed to adhere to, even traditional religious systems that we're supposed to follow. You know, the off-planet God that's judging us. You know,
Right.
and you know, and even if you don't subscribe to that, on some level, it's part of the collective unconscious. And so sociologically, we're very much guided toward giving our authority away. And so the biggest thing about working with this wisdom and being a conscious manifestor, a conscious creator, is in the removal of that which takes your power away, and the removal of the things in you that give your power away. You know, because it is so simple, but we have to know that we have the power to do it, and we have to hold on to it. Despite a society that says that would be perfectly happy with, you know, with telling us how we're supposed to look, with telling us what our money's supposed to look like. You know, we're all living lives based on things we see on television that tell us what we're supposed to be, and if we're doing it right, we're not doing it right. And this philosophy is saying that maybe be informed by that, but you decide. You decide, and that's the biggest shift that we need to make. And that's the part that it is simple, but that part makes it not easy.
True. That is, I feel, the only part which we need to comprehend and apply and execute. So, you know, talking about society, talking about the various gimmicks that we have around us, how do you think technology is actually destroying the humanity's consciousness? Because there's so many things, so many obstructions to take us away from.
Well, let me say this. Rather than badmouth technology, let me say this: the internet is a symbol of interconnection, and we have devices in our hand. I mean, look, I'm talking to you in across the world.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and in that way, the limitlessness that Huna talks about is exemplified in our technology. And so if we use it as that, if we use it as a way to reach others and recognize all of our interconnection, you know, I mean, I'm having a conversation with someone in a different country with different different ideas or different values, and yet we're sharing common and agreed upon spiritual truths. And that, you know, that is the aspect of technology. Where technology runs into where we run into difficulty with it is that we can present stories of ourselves, and we can become so addicted to presenting stories of ourselves that and a story is just a little bit outside of you. It's not flesh and blood you. It's just that thing. What does everyone think of me? How am I doing? And that pulls us slightly away from ourselves. So it's more about, so if in working with technology, it's more about how do we express all of ourselves, not just the stuff that we want to show, we want to showcase to others, to the world. And that's one of the things that we have to look at, because we can all become very plastic and synthetic otherwise.
Absolutely, yes.
You know?
Yes. I mean, it's a beautiful amalgamation of wisdom used in the right manner with the help of technology, which would be one of the major means going into the future.
That's right. You know, and even, you know, my path is shamanism, and this Huna philosophy comes from a shamanic culture. And in shamanism is about the reverence of nature, and nature just is what it is. And so, and nature is not looking at itself and wondering how it's doing and having low self-esteem. Nature's not doing that at all. Nature is just in its own expression. And so nature teaches us, is a template to teach us how to be with ourselves. You know, thunder waves are not walking around being shameful. You know, and I'll joke about porcupines are not bulimic. You know, there's no such thing as a sexually repressed goat. These things don't exist in nature, but they exist in us. And so the more that we come to our nature, which is what it is, without self-consciousness, the more that we find our path. And getting that close to yourself, that's something that the sociological structures say, I don't want you to do. Because if you do, you might not consume my product.
True. You would be the sore thumb if you don't do what I ask you to do.
That's right.
And that's how the people they get deviated. No, we need to be in the society. We need to do what the society is doing. The sheep, the herd mentality,
That's
and
right.
that's where this entire thing goes for a toss. They forget to sink in. They forget to delve into their higher consciousness. And later, a pandemic like this makes them realize, oh shit, where the hell are we going? We need to awaken. That,
Mhm.
unfortunately, it comes to a point of such a natural calamity as a pandemic or anything else to wake people up.
And just to say, I think that one of the huge benefits, if not the huge benefit, and even maybe the reason why this virus, why the Earth created this virus in order to teach us something, is around everyone being given the opportunity to get really close with themselves and to go inward and to really look at, what am I believing? Who am I? What is my purpose? And we're so, but before the pandemic, we were all just on this autopilot of just going,
Yes.
consuming.
Yes.
And there's something there, and the Earth said, you all need to slow down because
Mm,
you're not creating a reality. You're not creating a consciousness that can help us all keep going,
right.
because you're not following values of sustainability, of interconnection, of love, of humility. And because you're not individually in your own lives, it's now having an effect on the all.
On the
And so
all.
that
Yes.
pandemic was a real opportunity, and still is an opportunity for all of us to really go inward and look, how am I contributing in my own small individual way? How am I contributing
Mm,
to either health or to literally sickness? And that
true.
is something that's all being asked of us at this time on the planet.
That's very marvelously put. Very marvelously put, Hemant. I hope everybody realizes that, and all of viewers watching us now get the idea of how to go about it. You know? That brings us to the next question. In the current world scenario of corona, economic meltdown, and warlike situations, the world is engulfed with negativity. How can we raise our frequencies and the vibrations of the world to reach positivity? What is your take on that?
Well, read my book and follow the principles. That's the main thing I would say.
Yes, yes, yes.
But that said, I think in the recognition that we all have a bigger part to play. We and I think that if when we think of how difficult and the things about the world or about politics that we don't like, it would, so much of it would be cleared up if we all just did our part, just our part. And what does that mean? That means that you really work at being a good mother, that you really work at that you choose acting jobs that feel like they're contributing in some way. Although some of them might just be contributing to your bank account, and that's fine too, as long as you're using that forward. But whatever ways in which we can individually create love,
Mm,
create a sense of
mm,
a sense that we're all important. And the more that we can individually do that, if everyone just did their part, so much of the things that we're so mired with, and the environmental destruction, and the racial devastation, and all of it, this is a very low bar. But if everyone just tended to themselves enough that your mess doesn't spill into anyone else's experience, if we could just
mm,
do that,
mm.
we each have the ability, with the choices that we make, to do that, to just let our mess be contained so it's not spilling over into your experience.
Right,
That's how we can
right.
all contribute. As
It
simple
all,
as it is.
yeah,
If imagine 4 billion people doing that, you know.
true. The ripple effect. Imagine of the 4 billion people, what it would do to the entire globe.
That's right.
And it all boils down to the choices that each one of us has. It's either choice A, B, or C, and take the best which you think is the best for your own frequency and what effect it's going to have. Like, to ask a question to your own self that, okay, I'm going to be taking this step. Is it really going to create value in my life? If yes, will I be able to create more value for people around me?
That's
If people
right.
start to think,
That's
sorry,
right. And
yes.
and no, and also that we also really recognize that there are people who do not have the freedom to do that, and
Yes.
that's there too. And if you're lucky enough to have, I mean, I say in the book, if you are reading this book, you have enough choice and space in your life to actually use it. And so use it so that you can help those who don't have that choice.
Yes. So true. You could be actually a guiding light to them, the beacon of light as we have in the ocean to guide the ships and boats. It's, I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of why you got into this zone and why in my small means I'm trying to get this out to people. I mean, it's a way of us being a part of that collective tribe to be able to channelize everyone to look in that one direction, to the truth, to the oneness, to the synchronicity that we somehow miss out because of being helter skelter, because of being so confused in our own heads. Okay, I want the finance, I want the family life, I want this, I want that. But then the truth somewhere goes for a toss, and we lose that sight. But if we realize that if we are following that truth, it's not about leaving everything and going and sitting in one small corner of the world and thinking, okay, now I'm feeling good. But it's about being here right now in the day-to-day life, connecting to that truth and continuing to do what we are doing to create value.
That's right. And you know, even as you're talking, I'm thinking of you, and I'm watching you do this show, and you know, this is you absolutely are but exemplifying something, you know, because it's not just about everyone thinking you're clever or I'm clever. It's actually about us coming together to raise people up, to have a conversation that is real, and so, you know, just to say that you know, this, you're really an example of exactly what it is that you're talking about. I'm not giving a compliment as much as I'm really recognizing that we each have a part to play. And it doesn't mean that we don't like feeling clever, and we don't like, you know, we don't like when the attention is on us. But if you're lucky enough to have a platform, to pay that platform forward,
Yes.
is not only a gift, but it's from where I sit, the shaman's responsibility. You know, that we don't forget our shared world, and if we're lucky enough to actually be able to express that in whatever way we can, then it's so important that we do. Yeah.
Exactly. So true. It's like, again, visually, if I see like a tiny droplet of the ocean, the microcosm, like each one of us, if we can get others around us, you know, and create that microcosm a little bigger and then merge it with the macro, which would
That's
be
right.
beautiful, which is basically the idea behind what I feel. I mean, even in spite of being an actor, I've always like the same lines that you said, that you've been spiritual even before you started this conquest of spirituality. The same goes for me, that I always had been altruistic and spiritual. And somewhere I felt that, you know, we are definitely very fortunate and lucky to be given that platform, being an actor, because not everyone has that gift. And to be able to give out to people our own self in small ways in every role that we do, and hence create that thought through this channel of connecting to a higher self, is something I feel it's really beautiful. I mean, I'm a novice as compared to you. I'm still learning, and it's amazing to have a conversation with you, Heyman, because it's very enlightening, and and I can relate to it because coming from the same profession, and how you think, how you feel, and the essence that you have is seriously, it's a lot of gratitude from my side to you to be able
It's
to
my
have this
pleasure. You
conversation.
know, you said something beautiful about the ocean, and just to elaborate on it, if you think of each of us as an individual wave of an
Right,
ocean, but not
right,
able to separate ourselves from the ocean,
right,
then that means that how we take care of ourselves is how we take care of the all. You know,
right.
my Hawaiian teacher says, if you want to heal someone, think of them and you feel good.
Wow, that's
because
beautiful.
because what he's getting at is that we each individually affect the other through our own healing, through our own goodness. You know, the world is better off with you well. When you're well, you do this. When I'm well, I write books.
Right. Right.
You know, and so it's so important that we each recognize that it doesn't necessarily have to be that push outward toward the world, that the world is within us, and whatever we do for our own wellness, our own healing, will inevitably have an effect. And so, it's so important that we see that. So individual waves of the ocean, not separate from the ocean. And so if we just tend to our little wave, we tend to the ocean.
Right. It's like mending your own self, and because of that, the energy, the vibes that you give out would start to mend other waves as well, other beings as well.
That's right.
I'm really enjoying this conversation. That brings us to the next question, which is one profound experience. Oh, this is exciting. One profound experience you've had while practicing Huna. Would you like to share it with us and all the viewers who are watching us right now?
Yeah. So there's
you can share a couple of them.
Sure.
I'm totally
well, there's a practice. There's a practice in the book that's really the foundation of the book. A practice called Ho'oponopono, which is a practice. It's a practice. It's actually I even think of it as a lifestyle, but it's a way in which we are synthesizing mind, body, and spirit. We're creating congruency with those three aspects of the self. And essentially, the easiest way to understand it is that by directing love to ourselves, because there are parts of ourselves that hold unlove. However we were treated as children, whatever those low self-esteems are, whatever those addictions are, whatever those things are that we all struggle with, and we all have them. And all of those things were born because love was withheld, always. And so we use the conscious mind to extend love to the body. And in doing so, the body that holds those patterns. And in doing so, we align with the big love of spirit, who then brings us that loving reality, who creates that loving reality for us. So when I've guided people in that practice, just in my office or in groups, and it's very simple. It's just you get very quiet with yourself and you direct certain loving phrases to the part of you that's hurt. And what happens is that when you create a vessel down here that is filled with love, love tends to come in. And so a lot of times I've had experiences where I guide someone in that practice, and I will feel presence in the room. The lights will flicker and shift. There'll be a change. Things will get. There's a sense that the person's spirit is in some way coming back to them. You know, because if you think about the spiritual intelligences, whatever they are, they just want love. They're born of love. That all they understand is love, and all they want to do is bring us love. And so if we are using our choices down here in our human vessel to create love, we're in alignment with the big boys upstairs. Right. And in that, they come in to say, we see you. We see what you're doing. And that's why I've seen those sort of things happen in my office. Things shift and change, or sometimes a spontaneous healing. I've certainly seen that, and many synchronicities. You know, the spirit speaks to us through synchronicities, through signs, through omens. Right. You know, we get those, and they're just those little indicators that we're on the right path. Keep going. You know, you had a dream about this last night. Now it's showing up in your life. Like that is something that there is something there for you to follow. Always, always, always. So the more that you can become aware of those, and not just from my perspective, there's no such thing as a coincidence. Everything is it's an animistic intelligence. Shamanism is about that everything is alive. Everything has a consciousness. Every tree, every plant, every glass, everything is alive. Yes. Everything can relate to our thoughts. And to open to that is to, again, enter into that, seeing life through that shaman's mind.
It's about being connected to the sentient as well as the insentient beings.
That's right. That's right. And from this perspective, it even says that even a rock has some sort of a consciousness. Even a rock.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
You know, that's the from a shamanic perspective. If you think about it, think about a rock. A rock has been around, has seen civilizations go by. It holds memory, deep memory, and is a part of that oneness that we're talking about. So absolutely, we think of. I even, you know, when I get on a plane, because I know that everything relates to my thoughts, or at least that's what I believe. You think I'm a nervous flyer? I'll say to that plane,
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, here, a few words of encouragement. Do a good job, you know. One of my Hawaiian teachers, he said one time I got on a plane and he tuned in with the plane and he said, "How you doing, plane?" And the plane said, "I'm tired."
Oh, wow.
And he was white knuckling through that flight. So, but you know, but again, like so much of this perspective, the shamanic perspective, is going back to that time when we were children, when we would imagine these things in this way, where we would create our own realities, where there would be imaginary friends. You know, it's no different now. It's no different now. The children are onto something with that. They're onto something. They're tuning. There's so much that doesn't meet the eye. There's consensus reality is just this much, and then there's all the other rest of the hidden realms. And the more that we open our imagination and our curiosity to them, just like we did as children, the more we can enter into those realms.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at small kids, they're actually talking to, maybe if they're on a seesaw, they're talking to not to the friend who's on the other side, maybe they're talking to something else. Or when they're playing with toys, they're talking to that, you know, I don't know, whatever it is, baby cars, girls playing with dolls, they're talking to those toys. And even now, I mean, when you talk about synchronicity, I mean, since I was a kid, I always used to see these clouds, and there were shapes in the clouds, and I always used to look at them like, oh wow, okay, it's a bear, it's a dog, or it's you know. So even now, it's a dragon. And synchronicity of numbers, like I keep discussing this time and again. I keep seeing numbers, whether it's like 555, 1111, 12, 12, 09, 09. It is in a day at times 6 to 7 times. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
It is just.
Well, absolutely. And here's the thing. If you want to believe that those numbers hold no significance, then the world is what you think it is.
True,
and
which
they won't.
Said in the book. Yes.
You know, that's right. But if you decide, and this is why the imagination is key, that when I see those number synchronicities, they mean I'm on the right track. They mean pay attention. You know, they mean keep your eyes open. Look at what's going on in your life. Then that's what they become.
Right.
You know, and that's why the imagination is so important, because, you know, like I said, everyone's swimming in a whole bunch of different realities, and the reality that we want is the one that's effective for us, the one that makes us feel good. True. You know, True. The one that makes us feel more connected. You know, and that we have the ability, each of us, to create that through our imagination.
So true. And especially even the photo which you have shared in the book, when you were actually had that experience on the mountain where you were sitting, you had a smiling turtle, which is when I was reading it, I was like, okay, this is beautiful. But then when I went to that image, I was like, wow, I saw the towel on which you were sitting. And
it was so crazy. Yeah. So I was in that experience at the beginning of the call we were talking about on the volcano, and I had. This force came in, and I had to lay down. I had to lay down. I had to lie. I couldn't even. Something was happening to me, and then when that whole experience was over, I just took pictures around my head because I wanted to remember where I was with my cell phone. And then when I got back to the place that I was staying in Hawaii, I see my totem animal, which is the turtle. The turtle came to me almost 20 years ago in South America in a dream. Wow. Where it was like that this is your buddy, this is your spirit ally. And I include a picture in the book right next to me, carved in the lava rock, exactly. Right next to my head, smiling at me. It is the image, unmistakable image of a turtle. And absolutely, and I know that's why I included it in the book, because it was just so crazy, because it was it was enough to where I had that experience on the volcano, which then on the way back on the volcano, I'm knowing I'm going to have to quit acting, and I'm getting all this, I hadn't paid off my loans from drama school yet.
Yeah, it was pending, right?
Right. And, but it was just further further proof that what you experienced on that volcano, although it doesn't make sense, is real. And here's this image to show you. There was your spirit guide was sitting right next to you during it. It's amazing. Yeah.
So true. And it also, like when we talk about synchronicities, it's if we are really open to that idea, if we are really vulnerable to that beautiful idea of being open and discover and explore, it's like a message being thrown at us that you are going the right path and you're where you need to be, which is
That's right.
perfect.
That's
So
right.
if we actually sync ourselves, these messages will keep coming and keep telling us that we have your back. You're right in that place where you need to be, and just trust the entire journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. So Jonathan, you talk a lot about spirits. What's that about? I mean, right now also you said the spiritual guides. So how does that work? I know about I've not experienced it myself. Uh, at times, it's that gut feeling inside me, that intuition, if we can say it, or it's that voice which tells you, okay, there's just a small hint of something that comes up all of a sudden, and I follow that, which makes me feel okay. This is perfect. That. So, is that what a spirit guide or a spiritual guidance would be when you speak about that?
Yeah, I think that that you can think of it all just as chi, as prana, as the energy of the universe that then personifies itself based on your own aesthetic. So if you the prana will, if you're an angel person, the prana will organize itself and give you angel. If you're a spirit animal person, the prana will organize itself as spirit animal. But the idea is that's one way to think of it. Another way to think of it is that there are these helping beings that remain around the planet for us to call on. And that they are there. The best advice I've ever gotten regarding prayer is to know that when you pray, it is immediately heard. It is immediately heard. It's not necessarily on your timeline in terms of what you're praying about. But the idea is that the spiritual intelligences, there are spiritual intelligences around the planet that want to work with us. That are actually, that's why they're there. That's why they have not. They decided to stick around and help rather than be just gods and goddesses or stars or whatever else. They've stuck around to help. That's you might think of that as the bodhisattva. From the
Mahayana Buddhism.
Yeah, from the Buddhist perspective. But it's just these beings that have decided that they're going to stay in the incarnation that helps, and they respond to us when we call on them. So there's a lot of different ways to think about it. The most important thing with spirit guides is just that you develop an imaginative curiosity about them and see what you get.
Wow. So it's basically also being coming back to the same point about being open, about delving into that matter and letting yourself walk that path.
Yeah. That's right.
Wonderful. Jonathan, it has been extremely enlightening for me to have this conversation with you. I really am really enlightened, because a lot of things which I was always curious about, the Hawaiian Huna wisdom, after reading your book and after having the conversation with you, it has become all so clear. And it is, as such, beautifully you had shared that everything points to one same direction. And this Huna wisdom itself is so simple to understand and so simple to execute. So viewers, the book that we have been talking about is, I'll share with you the image, the cover of that book, and it is called The Shaman's Mind. Here you are. That's written by Jonathan Hammond. It's called The Shaman's Mind, Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life. So that's the book that Jonathan has written. It is beautiful. I have been fortunate enough to go through it, and it really opened my eyes. And it actually somewhere made me connect to something much more deeper towards the sentient beings and the interconnectedness that we spoke about. It's an eye-opener. So thank you so much, Jonathan, for giving us your precious time. And
It's my pleasure.
if you have something to say to our viewers,
it's all yours now. You can be the stage is all yours.
Sure. No, thank you so much for having me. It's really my pleasure. And yeah, the wisdom in the book, it's very practical, it's usable, and the best advice I can give you is to want what you want, and without too much doubt, and know that you can really create whatever life it is that you want, and don't undermine your own dreams. That's my advice more than anything.
That's a wonderful advice. Something that we all have to take it to heart. To not undermine our own dreams and desires, and not get perplexed with whatever is going on around us.
Yeah.
So viewers, I hope you've had exciting time with us. I have had an exciting time. I have been enlightened. And if you want to get in touch with Jonathan, you can get in touch on his website, which has been given on the ticker. It's www.jonathanhammond.com. He'll be more than happy to get in touch with you over there. And if you can get that book in your hands, it will definitely change the way you look at life and achieve all your dreams and desires without any doubt. So thank you so much, viewers, for being with us. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
It's been an immense pleasure, and I hope that we can continue our conversations in the future and have various different topics to talk about, and be a part of the tribe to enable people to realize, what the truth is and how to go about it.
It's so much pleasure. Thank you. Namaste. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Namaste. Please take care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do well. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.